Beginning this practice at about the middle of your mat and bringing yourself down into active Sukhasana. So you're going to use the energy of the feet to help draw the spine tall. If you bring the soles of your feet parallel to the side edges of the mat and rest your shins on opposite feet, drawing the flesh of your butt out so you're more on your sits bones. And then use your hands on your knees to draw yourself up so you're not rolled back onto your tailbone. Once you find your root system in your pelvis and in your legs, bring the backs of your hands together, which is a symbol of the roots of the lotus flower below the water. Find your breath as you bring your spine up tall. We're going to move now into the bud of the lotus flower, bringing the heels of your hands together, fingertips together, but drawing your knuckles away from each other so you have a diamond shape with space in between. And then we're going to move from there into full Padma Mudra or lotus blossom by separating the three middle fingers and pulling them away from each other. Little fingers and thumbs stay touching. And drawing that up towards the sky as you inhale, and then as you exhale, come back down into the bud and all the way down into the roots, backs of your hands together, emptying the breath out. And as you inhale, flow through those three again. Bud, blossom, the fullest of the breath coming in, and then back through bud and down to roots as you empty the breath out. Finding the ocean sounding breath, breathing through your nose, hearing it in your throat. And this is the last one. As you come back down into the roots of Padma Mudra, lotus symbol, use the energy of your heels drawing towards your sits bones to keep your spine tall. Let your eyes close and bring your attention to your breathing. I'll read you a little bit about our focus today. The basic movement of the heart is mirrored by the in-breath and the out-breath. The inhale receives from life and the exhale offers or gives itself back to life. So as you're breathing, imagine that the lungs are like wings on either side of the heart. And as you allow the ribcage to open and the wings of your lungs to unfurl, your heart gains more room to breathe and to be. In today's practice, we're going to create internal support through the breath and trustable foundations in the body, in the roots of the legs and the strength of the stem to undergird the heart in order to start to receive the bounty of the breath. If you're joining in for Adi Mantra, breathe in for the first of three. As you inhale, lift your hands up and through bud and blossom. Exhale, stretch your arms out, moving your arms with your breath, letting the wings of the lungs open, the rib cage stretch open, the shoulders open as you move your arms. Inhaling up, exhaling, stretching back. And this next time, bringing your arms down, shoulder level. We're going to open the jaw. Inhale, stretch your jaw, your tongue, your fingers wide, and then exhale, shake it out, letting loose through your face. Doing two more. Your pace of breathing. Feel free to make as much noise as you like that helps you release out so that you release tension in your face. As you come back to center, we're going to work with Breath of Fire to super oxygenate. So doing this by drawing the belly back on the exhale and letting it soften on the inhale. But as you pick up speed, that action might be a little bit less intense each time. Breathing in and out through your nose. This is a really effective breath for clearing your nose, clearing your sinuses. So feel free to clear your nose if you need to in order to breathe freely. If you're pregnant, don't do this breathing. If you're menstruating, you might prefer to do long, deep breathing. Take a breath in, pause, suspend the breath. Notice how that short little round of experimenting with Breath of Fire felt as you let the breath happen. We're going to do that Breath of Fire now with the arms up. So if you bring your arms up overhead, thumbs stretched towards the point above your head, and your palms open, so you're not making a full fist, it's a half fist. Shoulders as part of your back. Imagine your arms extend from your waist. And once you feel settled, come back into Breath of Fire, inhaling and exhaling evenly, so it sounds a little bit like sawing wood. Find your pace of breathing. Be sure you're getting the breath that you need. So if you start to get lightheaded, slow it down or come all the way back down to long, deep breathing. You can do the same exercise with Ujjayi pranayam if you need to. If you're working with Breath of Fire, find the pace that you can hear the inhale and the exhale are even. Whichever pace of breathing, whichever style of breathing you're working with, in your mind, connect the mantra Sat Nam. Inhaling Sat, exhaling Nam. If you just came from the last season before this one, that will be a mantra you're familiar with. A lot of our focus today is the root system and the stem. So feel that here, right at the beginning when we start. Think of drawing your heels towards your sits bones to help you lift up through your low back. Arms extending from your side waist as though your shoulder blades are part of your back ribs instead of your neck. And then lengthening out through your elbows, through that first set of knuckles and up through your thumbs. As you inhale, lift your arms up, touch your thumb tips together, and stretch all of your other fingers up. Hold the breath in, suspend the in-breath. If it's right for you, engage MulaBandha, root lock, by squeezing anus, sex organ, navel in and up, eyes closed. Imagine you can see up through the top of your head, looking upwards, arms long, shoulders broad. And just stay there as long as you're not struggling. And when you need to, let your arms come out as the breath flows out. Taking your time to move your arms through space and let your hands rest on your legs, palms up or down, doesn't matter. Taking that in, noticing how you feel. Watching the breath happen. See if you can feel any more room for the wings of your lungs to unfurl inside your rib cage after that exercise. Being conscious of your breath, breathing a little deeper, coming back into Ujjayi pranayam as you transition from sitting up to lying down, coming into tuck pose briefly. So finding your place on the mat where your shoulders are broad, back of your neck is long, and use your arms to draw your legs down into you. And as you breathe deeper, and at the same time draw your legs in, feel where the breath goes in your torso. You might feel that stretch up into your shoulders. Moving from here into hamstring stretch. So hook your big toes and start to reach the heels of your feet up, looking to align middle toes, ankles, knees, front hip bones. So your big toes are roughly a fist width apart. Finding the edge where your breath stays steady, where you can inhabit the intensity of the stretch in the backs of the legs. You might think of inhaling, opening up through the backs of the legs, like the breath can reach the stretch in your hamstrings and your calves. Shoulders and sacrum are often off the ground, so as long as you keep your balance, think of breathing into your back ribs and your low back to set your root system, your foundation, and then stretching up from there. If you're more flexible, your legs are a little bit longer, you can hold the balls of your feet or even the outer edges of your feet. Whichever hold you're working with, you can also start to play with deepening the stretch by moving your quadriceps away from your head. So you're moving your thigh bones towards the bottom edge of the mat, creating a little more space between your thighs and your belly. Tilting your tailbone towards the ground, maybe bringing your shoulders a little broader under your back. But if you're still working through lengthening the knees, don't worry about those things just yet. Focus on what you can breathe into. I'm going to transition from hamstring stretch into stretch pose, which involves that breath of fire again. So again, make the choice about what's appropriate for you today. You might need to stay with long, deep breathing. Push the ground away with your hands, plant your low back into the ground, and then take your legs only as close to the ground, within about a foot off the ground, where your low back is safe. Lift your head, look at your toes, stretch out long through your legs, and then stretch out long through your spine, taking the top of your head away from your toes, adding in breath of fire if you haven't already. So you're breathing in and out through your nose, using your hands to push the ground away to plant your belly into your low back, so your low back is safe. May or may not be touching the ground, but as long as it feels supported by the core and safe. If you need to, adjust by taking your legs up higher, or even doing one leg at a time, tucking the other one in towards you. If you're feeling your neck at all, you can hold the back of your head with one of your hands. But see if you can lift your head by dropping your bottom ribs into your belly, so your head and shoulders are lifting more from your core strength than from your neck strength. Last few seconds, if you want, you can play with taking your hands off the ground, palms facing each other. Nearly there. This is intense. Take a breath in, suspend, hold up, stretch out a little bit longer, hold a little bit longer. And then as you exhale, release into Shavasana and see how quickly you can let go, having practiced levitating, lifting up off the ground. Now release as easily and fully into the ground as you can. Surrender. One of our key quotes for this practice talks about surrender. It says, moment to moment, surrender is the choice to open up to what is actually going on inside us and around us at any given moment. It is the most profound form of alignment with reality, and it opens us to love. Another author, Long Chen Pa, has said, since everything is none other than exactly as it is, one may well just break out in laughter. So that's our next exercise here. Continue to rest your body on the ground, and yet see if you can belly laugh. From your belly, up through your rib cage and your lungs, and out through your mouth. So if you don't feel like laughing, just make it an abdominal exercise. See if you can get your belly to pulse. And even if you're faking it, you might find you end up laughing anyway. Notice how it feels to laugh for no good reason, other than things are exactly as they are, so we might as well laugh. If you can go a little bit longer, make it an exercise if you need to. As the laughter begins to drop away, take that in. Notice what it feels like physically, energetically, emotionally to have laughed, or if you struggled to laugh today. Let your breath deepen from that. Notice how your breathing may have been affected by laughing. Use your core and your exhale to draw your legs in and begin to rock and roll along the length of your spine, if that's right for you. Otherwise, rock and roll side to side or massage in the best way for your spine. If you're moving along the length, make sure you don't put pressure on your neck and see if you can balance on your sits bones when you come up. We're going to come all the way up onto feet in about the back half of the mat, so you have room to move forward for the next few things. into Kundalini frogs, leaping frogs. So find where your heels are together, your toes are out. If you're more flexible and your legs are long and you can touch the ground easily, your heels will be wedged together off the ground and they'll stay together as you come down into your frog squat. If that's not accessible for you, then your heels will peel off the ground as you come down into your squat. You can also use a block to bridge the gap between your hands and the floor if you need to. You're going to inhale and lift up and exhale and come down. Feel free to start out slowly, especially if you have knee issues. Only go as far as you feel your knees are safe. Inhaling, drawing your hips up, legs long, not locked through your knees, but lifting up. And then exhale, hips down and head up. Think of drawing the energy up from the ground, up through your legs. You're pulling it up out of the ground to your hips, and then take it from your hips up to your heart and your head as you exhale. So let the heart open and the head lift when you come down on the exhale. And as you continue, you start to increase your pace. See if you can keep the hands light, so you're not taking the weight in the hands. You're taking the strength into the legs, strengthening your root system. Finding your pace of breathing. Inhaling up, exhaling down, clearing your nose out, increasing circulation, getting the heart going. When we work these big muscles in the legs, the heart has to work a little bit stronger as well. Jaw relaxed. Feel free to close your eyes if you feel balanced. Last one. Bring yourself down for a moment into your squat. Slow your breathing down. And then when you're ready, if you need to stay down low, stay down. But when you're ready, come into hanging over parallel feet, mountain feet. You might want to bend your knees if that feels better. See what works best for releasing your spine, not getting too caught up in your hamstrings, and deepening your breathing. So you're taking all of that energy, that invigoration from those frogs into a slower, deeper breath. See if you can shift your breathing. Pranayama means, or can translate to mean, control of the life force, the prana that comes in on the breath. And see if you can start to shift your breathing consciously, skillfully. As you breathe long and deep, bring yourself down onto your shins. We're going to stretch out the quadriceps that you just woke up in your frogs. So you might feel them. They might be more apparent or warmer. Bring yourself down onto your shins, or if you have tricky knees, be on the balls of your feet, knees off the ground, your hands behind you, weight coming into your hands. Your fingers can face whichever way works for wrists and shoulders. Lift your hips up. Once you have your foundation, your root system, and look down at your pelvis and draw your low belly in and up. The awareness here of what's happening in the pelvis is key for our back bending, our heart opening practice. So look down, see if you can draw your pubic bones up with the strength of your core in front, pulling pubic bones up towards belly button. And on the other side of your pelvis, use your gluteal muscles to tilt your tailbone forward towards your knees, looking to see that your front hips align, left to right. If you want to take this a little deeper, once you have your pelvis open, a long line from knees right up to low ribs, you can bend your elbows if you like. Give it another breath or two, as though your breath can reach the stretch in the thighs. And then transitioning your knees out wider. Notice the change of the stretch in your thighs. Might feel a little easier here. This gives an awareness of what will often happen when we move into the back bending is that the knees want to go out wider. I'm going to come from here into squat. So push the ground away, shift your weight forward, keep your knees at the edges and bring your feet out towards the edges of the mat. And as you curl your toes under, shift your weight back into your feet. Find your grounding, your root system in your feet, checking to see that they're doing the same thing left to right from the midline of the mat and in relation to the edges of the mat. And focusing first on dropping your heels and your tailbone down. Don't worry if your heels don't touch the ground. Just focus on sinking down, stretching Achilles and calves. And even in this crouching version, this lower version of the squat, use your arms to press your knees out, to align your knees over your middle toes so you feel a little bit more weight in your little toes. More of a lift in your inner arch, inner ankle. You're going to get a little bit more opening in the upper body and start to come into a relationship between the tailbone and the sternum that we'll play with through this practice. So continue, once you're up on the balls of your feet, you've lifted your heels up a little bit. Continue to press your knees out over your toes. Use that leverage of your arms, your lower arms inside your knees to draw your sternum up in front, your shoulder blades down behind your heart space, more than up around your neck. And see if you can start to feel the relationship between the sternum lifting in front and the tailbone lifting in back. So can you start to sink your heels in your tailbone and keep the sternum lifted? Feeling the core strength in between to hold your rib cage open for the breath. If you want to play with balance, bring your hands off, keeping shoulders broad. This next time that you exhale, transit from your squat into table, stretching your fingers open before you bring your palms down and aligning knees under front hips and your feet behind your knees. So you have parallel lines through the bones of your legs. Once you have a good stretch through your fingers, plant the base of your fingers down, your palms down, and roll your back up towards the sky by pushing the ground away with your hands and with your shins. See if you can get your shins and the front of your ankles to open. And then rolling on your next inhale into cow pose, from your tailbone up to your head. Pause here and check that you can clear your shoulders back away from your neck, drawing them back and in towards the back door of your heart. You might need to move your hands if you're not able to do that. Once you find your positioning, then roll between cat and cow. So you're exhaling on cat and inhaling on cow. Let your tailbone lead. Roll all the way up to the top of your head. And use your root system on the ground, especially in cat pose, in your exhale, to leverage away from the ground. Press front of your ankles and shins and base of your fingers down and see if that gives you a little bit more stretch along the curve of your spine. In cow pose, see if you can play with starting to feel the upper rib cage gaining more mobility. It's dropping down towards the ground and drawing it forward between your upper arms. So it feels like you're sticking your chest out between your arms. So when you next come into cow pose, we're going to play with this awareness again between tailbone and sternum. Find where you're drawing your chest forward, shoulder blades down and back away from your neck. Your arms are long, but not locked. And then see if you can keep that and draw your belly up into your low back and aim your tailbone towards the back edge of the mat so you can feel your low back lengthen and is more supported by the core. And notice the edge, the tug zone between the tailbone and the sternum. When you start to lengthen your low back, when does that want to pull the sternum out of its placement here of drawing forward? Next time that you exhale, push the ground away and come right up onto your shins, onto your knees, checking that your knees are under your front hip bones, so your knees haven't wandered out wide. Press your shins, your feet down, and bring your hands onto your butt. Find where your hands are low enough that your shoulders don't ride up around your neck, so you may need to be a little bit lower, even the top of the thighs, as we move into this very beginning version of camel or Ustrasana. Use your hands on your butt to leverage your sternum up. So it's what you were just playing with. Draw your sternum, your chest up. Keep looking straight ahead so that you're drawing your chest towards your chin. Otherwise, your chin will want to do it all. And then feel on your exhale, especially that you drop your tailbone down towards the back of your knees and play with that relationship on each breath. Inhale, lift rib cage, sternum up. Exhale, drop tailbone down and draw your elbows in towards each other. So you create brackets with your arms behind your heart space. Check that you're breathing. As you move into back bending, the breath stays with you the entire time. Even though it adjusts, it alters slightly, it doesn't leave entirely. Play with finding your core strength to hold this. So notice if you're sinking into your hands, can you lighten the weight in your hands, maybe even lift them off your butt without collapsing your chest? We're going to come out of this by lifting one arm up, lift your core up, inhale up, windmill, bring your other arm up, and then use your hands on the ground to press your hips back over your heels, coming into extended child. And bringing your attention and your breath into your low back. Notice what you're feeling there. So if it's feeling really intense, you may have lost the core support when we did that beginning version of camel. Massage your low back here with your breath. Breathe into your belly, into your low back. Push the ground away with your hands. Drop your hips back. Lengthen your low back. Slow your breathing. Deepen it. And we're going to open the back doors of the heart with rabbit sarsangasana. So wrap your hands around, hold on to the heels of your feet. Get a good strong cup with your hands on your heels, and then tuck your forehead in towards your knees so that when you lift your butt up into the air and you press your shins down into the ground, you're on the very top of your head and your neck is long. You're not on your forehead. If this down version doesn't work for you, do the upright version. Hold tight to the heels of your feet so that as you lift your hips and your arms lengthen, you find space opening between your shoulder blades and your upper back. And now see if you can focus your breath here. You just had your breath in your lower back, so now see if you can breathe into your upper back. Giving that one more breath. Use your next exhale to release your hips back down and come into a comfortable child posture. So that might mean taking your knees out, resting your head on something. Let your breath start to settle out into its own easy rhythm. So letting go of Ujjayi pranayam. Noticing the rib cage and the lungs and the heart and your relationship to this area. I'll give you a little bit of reading about Anahata, the heart, our focus here. The basic movement of the heart is mirrored by the in-breath and the out-breath. The inhale receives from life and the exhale offers itself back to life. Receiving is mentioned first because it is conspicuously absent from our lives. Receiving has to do with having a fundamental openness toward experience, a willingness to accept all that life has to offer, the good and the so-called bad. Often we do not allow ourselves to receive because we have not developed a strong, centered ground. We simply cannot hold the energy of bounty. We are bowled over by heightened spiritual experiences or by perceptions of too much, money, authority, responsibility, and so forth. In order to receive, we must begin at the root, establishing ourselves in our fullness and in our right and need to be exactly who and where we are. Receiving also involves accepting rejection and pain without blocking it out and forming judgments that will not allow us to transform the energy. When it is our time to drink from the cup of poison, we can drink it completely. In this way, we receive the impact and hence the wisdom of the experience. In the midst of our darkness, we then find a jewel forming, a treasure that is ours to share because we have allowed it to form through our genuine openness. If we are unwilling to open to rejection, criticism, or illness, we waste much energy trying to push these things away and are therefore constantly in a defensive position. In order to receive such gifts, we must be convinced of our innate goodness and value. We must believe that we are inherently worthy. Another word for giving is support, and support is something that occurs on all levels. The opposite of support is envy, and it is the crowning emblem of scarcity. Wherever there is envy in our lives, there is a place where we believe that we do not have enough, or worse, are not ourselves enough. To work through the heart center, Anahata, is to come to terms with our envy. Like any other so-called negative emotion, envy begs for care and investigation. And as we trace it down to its roots, we see our hidden hopes as delicate flowers that have been stepped on and damaged. We find things that we always wanted to do but never did, and ways in which we always wanted to be but never allowed ourselves to be. Once we see what underlies our envy, we can stop projecting the emotion outwards onto others. There is new material to guide us and help us open to the desires of the heart. As you deepen your breathing, use your next couple of breaths to connect in with your physical heart, to notice your lungs expanding on either side, pressing into your legs and opening into your back. Use your next inhale to lift yourself up, bringing your arms out and up overhead. And as you bring them down, separate your 3 middle fingers coming into Padma Mudra. And as you come down the front of your face into Bud, as you come down towards your heart, bring the backs of your hands together into the roots, acknowledging your support for yourself and showing up on the mat today. Namaste.